Let's say you have done boiler water testing and suddenly you realize that the boiler water ppm is extremely high. What will you do? Okay, that is the time you think of boiler blowdown. And let's say maybe you are answering an interview, you are preparing for an oral exam, and that is the time you are going to face this question. So let's understand what is boiler blowdown, why we are doing it, and how to do it, and what are the sub questions which you can get if you have to answer an oral on that. Okay. So let's try to understand what is a boiler blowdown. Boiler blowdown is basically you're trying to drain out some amount of water, you know, so that you can remove out some impurities. Now, how it happens? Ideally, whatever water which you are taking will contain some amount of impurities, some amount of, uh, precipitate or some amount of unwanted things which we want to remove. And many a times, all this salt and other things which are there can go inside your tubes, can go inside your pipelines, go inside your heating coils and settle there or harden there. And then what can happen is it can be very difficult for you to do heating. And, because heat cannot transfer to scales. And because of which temperature rises and then it creates problem, it can damage the pipelines and all, and the coils also. So to avoid all this, what we do is we try to maintain the boiler water, and regularly we have to do boiler water testing. We check how much is the ppm, and we try dosing water. Now, dosing, why it is done? Dosing, by dosing chemicals in boiler water, what we do is we try to separate out the unwanted things which are there, and that will form it will form a solid material, and it will settle down. It will form a solid precipitate and it will settle down, and that precipitate and that material can be thrown out of the boiler by doing something called as bottom blowdown. Also, there is evaporation which is taking place, continuously evaporation which is taking place from the boiler. Now, because evaporation is taking place, some of the salts will remain on the surface of the water level, which is the inside the bowl. To remove that, we have something called as scum loader. Okay. Now, while doing this, we have three main valves which are used for doing boiler blowdown. And many a times, what people think is, suppose my ppm is high. Suppose let's say I got a ppm of 300 or 200. What I will do, I will blow down boiler for a very long time, which is completely wrong. Okay, many a times what happens is you open the bottom blowdown valve, you start blowing down for 1 2 minutes, or 5 minutes. Also, some people do, which is wrong. And what happens is you're just wasting water, because what will happen is as soon as you open it for a very long time, the precipitate, all the material which is settled down, will start moving aside, and only water will start flowing out. And just pumping out water is of no benefit, because first of all, it's a fresh water. Secondly, you have already done some dosing, chemical is there, you're wasting your chemicals. So ideally, you should not be doing it. If you read if you read the chemical manual, or if you find out the boiler manual, you will find out, boiler water, when you want to blow down, you should not be blowing down for very long time. You should ideally do it for around 10 to 15 seconds, take a break, again do 10 to 15 seconds. If your ppm is high, what you have to do is you have to do blow down after a while. That means in a day, don't do just one time, do 4 5 times. So after 4 hours, every 4 hours, you try to do boiler blow down, and that is where you can bring it down. And I have done it in my past also, where the ppm was very very high, and just by doing it regularly, and not just wasting water, but doing it for 15 seconds, giving 15 seconds break, again doing 15 seconds, and then you stop it, and then you do after 4 hours. Okay, but then you need additional time to spend there. You might have to find the fourth engineer or someone else who will help you in doing the blowdown. Or ideally, what you can do, you can come slightly early. As soon as you come in the watch, you do the blowdown. Then after, when you are leaving the watch, maybe you do a blowdown. So 2 times you have got, and maybe a span of 4 hours you are able to get. And same thing can repeat in the next 4 hours. Now let's try to understand how you should be doing the bottom blowdown or the scum blowdown, since we have three different valves, and why we are doing in that manner. So let's go to so here we have a boiler, and the top side, which is there, let's say this is your scum blowdown. We have the bottom blowdown over here. You have the over wall over here. Now, let's try to understand with respect to the wall number. This is number one. This I will call number two. This I will say number three. Now, you can never do blowdown, both of the blowdown simultaneously. It is not possible. Okay, you have to do one. You finish this off, then you go here and do the second one. So, what you can do, first of all, first valve you have to open is this. Okay. Second valve you can open is the boiler side valve. And the third valve which you open, or lastly which you open, is the middle valve. Now, why this? Like as I was telling you, you have to open for 10 to 15 seconds. Okay. This is the window. Then you again shutting it for around 15 seconds. Okay. Open, close, and then again you do it for 15 seconds. Now, when you're doing this, many a times you will not able to open the valve fully. You will have to throttle it. So doing that, what does it mean? When you have to throttle a valve, that means water flow is going to go when the valve is not fully open. It is high temperature water, possibility of steam, which is already formed here. This is already above 100 degrees. So maybe just because of the pressure, it is not formed the steam, but it is a very high temperature water. This water will definitely start damaging the valve. Now, ideally, we want only this valve to get damaged, because if somehow we damage this valve or this valve, changing them is a very difficult scenario. Okay, why changing this is difficult? Suppose you want to replace this valve. First of all, you'll have to shut down boiler, depressurize boiler, and then drain the boiler. Then only you'll able to change this valve. At least for this valve, we might have to, stop the boiler, depressurize, and just drain it up to this level. But this is much more difficult. Same way, if you want to change this valve, okay, if you want to change this valve, what will happen? You have water level higher than this. This is on the bottom platform. Changing this means you have to do it in dry dock, or you will have to do some kind of listing and try to do some difficult things so the water doesn't enter, or you might end up flooding your engine room. So a lot of problem is there changing this. That's the reason always, if you want to throttle any valve, you have to throttle this, because this valve can be changed easily. You close this valve, you close this valve, water cannot come here, boiler water cannot come here, so you can change this valve easy. And now many of them might ask, like, all three valves are in open condition. Water is flowing through all three valves. Why not this and this will not get damaged? When the valve get damaged is when we start throttling it. So when you have already opened this valve, okay, when you're opening this valve, first when you're opening this valve, there is no flow of water. Flow is restricted, flow is stopped by this valve, because this valve is in closed condition. So it will not act on the valve. Second valve, when we are opening, again, this valve is shut. So flow cannot take place. Slight hot temperature, high temperature water will come here, but it will not damage the valve. So this valve also is safe. So only place where water is going to get affected is start affecting the valve is here, where we are going to open the valve and throttle it and then close it again, open it again. So in that manner, this valve is going to get damaged. So that's the reason. Always remember, this middle valve has to be opened the last. And why? It's because we're going to throttle it, even if you want it or not. Somehow opening and closing will make sure some amount of wear and tear takes place and wire drawing effect takes place, and that will damage the valve seat and the valve. Same way we are doing scum blowdown. First number, second number, and third number. Okay. So why? Ideally, if you open this first or this first, doesn't make any difference. But what actually happens? Suppose if you open this first, okay, if you open this first, this is down. This is down. So you can open this valve, then go up and do the rest part later. So for that reason, I would say this you can open first. Otherwise, opening this or this doesn't make much of a difference. Hope you have understood this part clearly. If any doubts, you can message below and you can write down. We will also discuss in the maybe next coming videos, we can discuss how to take a sample. Many a times, if you don't know to take a sample properly, and you might simply panic because you might think that you are getting high ppm. So we'll try to understand in the next video. So if you have any doubts, if you have any questions, please do write down below. And hope you like this video, share and subscribe. Thank you. Best of luck for your future.